Hey everyone, Ian here. So in today's video I'm going to be talking about the Retroflag GPi case, and how I used it and the Raspberry Pi Zero 2, so one of these little guys, to get started playing all my old retro video games from the 90s. And hopefully you'll learn from some of the mistakes. I set it up with Recalbox and made a few mistakes along the way, and hopefully you can learn from them and not make them as well. Okay, let's jump right into things. So we're going to start off with an unboxing here. So we've obviously got the other compatible products listed, so the Zero and the Zero W, but we've also able to now, because the Zero 2 is the same size, same form factor as the original Zero, we can put it inside this GPi case and get the added benefit of that extra power that the Zero 2 has got. So if we take a look at what we got inside here, so obviously just cardboard box for one thing. We have a collection of things here. Let's get them all out. So the instructions, don't need them. We have this barrel connector, which is for when you want to power just directly from USB. We have a screwdriver, which is handy, along with all the screws that we're going to need in the back of the case there. And we've also got the main event itself, so the Retroflag GPi case. And yeah, get it out. And yeah, this looks great. It's a fantastic little device. It feels really, really nice. Let's get this sticker off here. So the GPi is actually slightly smaller than the original Game Boy. If we open up this battery compartment, we've only got space for 3 batteries, where the original Game Boy had 4. Now there's obviously lower power requirements on this GPi and the Pi Zero compared to 90s electronics, but yeah. And if we pull out this cartridge, we can see the whole top comes off, and we actually have space for the entire Zero 2 to fit inside this cartridge. So that's what's going to happen. And this feels like a nice size in the hands. So we got the on-off switch to get this cartridge out on the top. And yeah, the buttons feel really nice. It feels like a legitimate original Game Boy, except for the extra buttons. You've also got the volume slider on here, and on the other side the contrast. But what I'm going to do now is go and get set up with Recalbox. So let's do that. Now, a bit confusingly, if we head to the Recalbox 8 website and attempt to download, we find that we're directed to use the Raspberry Pi launcher. So within there, we choose emulation in Game OS, Recalbox, and then the Recalbox GPi Case and Pi Zero 2. Choose our storage and then just write it out. So leave that to write out. It takes no time at all to get written out to this. This sped up quite a lot on here, so that you don't have to sit through that. We're going to put the SD card back into the machine once this finishes, and what we should see is a share and a Recalbox directory pop up. So within the share mount is this ROMs directory, and within there is all the consoles that we can add. I'm going to add some from the Mega Drive. There's loads of others that you can add. Some have quite involved procedures for adding things, like adding BIOS and that, but we're going to stick with the Mega Drive for now and just use that. So now we've got our memory card all set up, let's start assembling this case. So the first thing you need to do is take this protective screen off. Done. And let's just admire it again. Lovely. You see my reflection. Hello. All right. In the battery compartment is this safe shutdown switch. That needs to be on. By default it's off. That's so we can shut down the Pi Zero correctly using the switch on the top here. Anyway, we need to break open this cartridge and get to the PCB inside. And this is a tiny little thing that features some pogo pins on it. Let's get our Pi Zero 2 out. And basically the pins are going to marry up with the pins on the Pi Zero here. So we need to sit the Pi Zero inside this cartridge and then just sit the PCB on top with the pins matching up. So I found this quite tricky. I don't know if the Pi Zero 2 is slightly fatter than the Zero was, but lining these up felt slightly strange. It didn't feel like things were going to connect. So to start, let's plug in this mini USB here. This little gold ribbon cable just slots into the Pi Zero 2 there. And then this should just sit neatly in the cartridge. So you've got all these holes, they line up, And as I said, the pogo pins here should just sit on top of the board, or sit beneath the board, depending on which way you got it up. So you can see me trying to eyeball it and figure out what's going on here, but basically they just press together. It's very simple setup. So if you take the plug out for the micro SD card first, it makes things a bit simpler. And we just line this up here, plop it in, and then ultimately we just fold over the top here. And I had some troubles here, like I said. When I put things together, it just didn't seem to fit right. It felt too fat. And even though it was compressed as far as it could go, when I pushed the cartridge back in here, it just didn't seem right. It felt like things were wrong. And I didn't feel comfortable about the way it was set up there. And although I kind of went ahead and just went and screwed everything back together here, as you can see, and thought, no, maybe these screws are going to pull it all together and it'll be tighter that way. You probably shouldn't do it this way. If things don't feel right, they probably aren't. So when I put this cartridge back in, you can see it doesn't sit right. It should be flat. And it also meant that the SD card fell straight inside the cartridge here, meaning that I had to open it up again and fish it out. So looking at it dead on, you can see that looks wrong. The board's getting completely crushed inside. So I unscrewed everything and did it again. Basically, I pulled these apart and then discovered that it seems like the PCB wasn't lining up correctly at the end here. So you can see that little hole. Made sure I pushed in far end first, clipped that in, and it seemed to click nicely then. And you can see it's seated much more nicely there. And then I was able to push in the top, and that sat correctly. It could click together a bit better than it did before. And it just looked a lot like it was correct. And so it went through the process of screwing everything together again. And yeah, then it just felt like it was meant to be. So yeah, save yourself some time and do it right the first time round, so the cartridge slots in nicely. Let's talk about batteries. So I started out with these AA's that were industrial Duracell ones. They didn't work so well. What I found was when I switched things on was that Recalbox was stuck in this kind of ever installing infinite loop. And it looked like the screen had corrupted in some way. So what I later found out is that Recalbox recommends using the barrel connector for the first boot and using batteries thereafter. Anyway, I actually switched out the batteries for these. These are Amazon Basics rechargeable, which is weird because they're slightly lower voltage, 1.2 volts rather than 1.5. And when I popped them in, it actually got past this installing screen. It took a lot longer than you see in the video here. I've skipped through lots of stuff. And eventually it got to the Recalbox intro screen. Now it shows a different one of these each time you boot, and some of them can be particularly long. This is on like 30 seconds. But we get to all our consoles then, and we can browse through and we can select ones that we want to use. I'm going to go straight into Sega Genesis and start Sonic and let you hear the music for yourself. Oh, such a beautiful sound hearing that at the beginning. And so there we are, we've got Sonic loaded and we're able to play. You probably noticed that my button mappings are a bit strange here. We're pressing B to do the jump rather than A. So I later found out that this is actually down to the UI. If we set it to EU rather than using US, we get both the correct button mappings, and it will switch over to saying Mega Drive in the kind of selector menu there we had at the beginning. So yeah, I had a great time playing through Sonic here. As you can see, I get quite involved in it. I really enjoyed putting this build together. It's going to be fun exploring all the other games. There's other things I want to do. I haven't quite got everything set up as I want. one of my goals was to try and get some more modern stuff working on here. So I particularly want to get retro modern games, things from the Pico 8 system working on this, and it should be possible, but it might be that I have to use something other than Recalbox to do that, it looks like. One of the other things that's worth pointing out is with the Recalbox is that they include a number of different games that have been made available already. So here's one I'm showing, which is 2048, based on the classic game on your mobile, if you've ever played that. So you have to generate the 2048 number. A couple of these my kids have really got into. So there's a couple on the Mega Drive. Bug Hunt, I think, is one of them, where you have to lick up bugs. And I quite like the fact that those exist on this. It's nice to go back to the retro stuff, but it's also nice to see modern titles able to be played on this system as well. So that's something I'm going to be exploring more in the future. Hopefully, if you want to see stuff like that, you will subscribe to the channel and you might be able to find it in a future video. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I will see you in a new video at some point in the future. And please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow me on social media. I'll speak to you soon. All right, bye for now.